Could Tom Brady be headed to the Dallas Cowboys? On this episode of OurSport. I'm Larry. I'm your host. John, as always, is doing the recording, editing, and occasional commentary. This episode, he's going to provide a complete scouting report on Oregon's quarterback, Justin Herbert. Let's start with the Tom Brady story. What I've learned over the years from watching the NFL since I was a child is that there's no such thing as crazy, and there's no such thing as impossible. Impossible things have happened throughout the history of this league. The San Francisco 49ers cut Joe Montana. I don't care if they cut him for a Hall of Fame quarterback. They still cut what was considered the greatest quarterback of all time, or I should say traded him to the Chiefs. So anything is possible. And to think that the Patriots might want to get rid of a guy who has won 6 Super Bowls for them, for somebody like, we've heard Andy Dalton rumored there. That's crazy, but that's a distinct possibility. Now, one of the rumors has come out, and it's been kind of hot, is that Tom Brady could be going to the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of this could be clickbait, but I don't know if I'm Jerry Jones, the Cowboys owner, if I don't explore this very seriously. Dak Prescott, their quarterback, he's a young quarterback. He's completely unproven. He threw for, he's second in the league in yardage last year, had the number 1 offense, but it's like the Cowboys have been for 20 years, 25 years, just empty calories. And you talk about the king of not having empty calories, of substantive wins, of a huge championship legacy. It's Tom Brady. And this is your window. This is your chance to get him. Sign him for 2 years. When you look at the weapons that the Dallas Cowboys have, an all-pro running back, 2,000 young receivers, an offensive line that's still in its prime and still has a ton of all-pro players, guys going to the Hall of Fame. And you compare that to what he had in New England. It's ridiculous. He's got so much more talent. And the fact that the Patriots have been better throughout the past few years than the Cowboys on offense lets you know how badly coached they were, how badly mismanaged they were. Mike McCarthy is the coach now. Jason Garrett's gone. Mike McCarthy's not Bill Belichick, but he's not Jason Garrett. He's a competent NFL coach, one of the few with a Super Bowl ring. And if you're the Cowboys, do it. Do it because you missed your window. When Ray Lewis was a free agent, one of the few truly great players in their prime that you could get, they passed. They didn't think he was good enough. They signed Keith Brooking. Keith Brooking, the difference between Keith Brooking and Ray Lewis is like the difference between shooting a bullet and throwing it. It's not even close. So Dak Prescott has proven that you're going to have to need a quarterback. Dak Prescott's got to walk. Fine, let him walk. He wants 30, 40 million a year. He wants 40 million a year. You can't pay him that. He's proven nothing. Tom Brady could ask for 10 million less than that, and you have a 2-year window. 2 years is an eternity in this league. It's an eternity. 2 years ago, nobody knew who Lamar Jackson was or Pat Mahomes. I think Lamar Jackson was still playing at Louisville. Think about how much things have changed in 2 years. This is your time. All the offensive linemen you have, they're all in their late 20s. This is their prime. Jason Garrett wasted their prime for all this time. Go make up for it. Go get Tom Brady because you know if he's healthy, that's the only question. If he's healthy, well, at his age, I tend to think that he still has plenty left, that this is a player that's going to be great even at this age, and it was just injuries and a supporting cast that limited him somewhat last year in New England. I'm more of a risk taker, as John says, but I would do it in a minute. Now, let's talk about the Detroit Lions. If you've watched this podcast, you've heard us say it repeatedly. We're user-friendly. If you have a request, if you want us to talk about your team, we will. We've got a subscriber, Mason Baumgartner. Could you talk about the Detroit Lions organization? Do they have ownership or management issues? Is it coaching and player selection? All right, let's get into this. The Lions last year, they were a 3-12-1 team. Thanks for ties, NFL. We all want to see a bunch of ties. And their coach, Matt Patricia, was a former Patriots defensive assistant, former defensive coordinator. The year before that, they were a 6-10 team. Last year, like I said, 3-12-1. And what happened? How'd they get here? You have to look at what they are first. Well, let me tell you what they are. They were a team that started 3-3-1. That was their record. Matt Stafford got hurt, broken bones in his back, out for the year, lost every game since. And then they had a running back they leaned on, Kerryon Johnson. He got hurt. He missed the year after Game 6, and their offense fell apart. They finished 31st in the league on defense. Now, the defense is their biggest issue. But your defense is not 31st in the league if you can't get first downs, if you can't get points, if you can't get yards, your defense could be 24th in the league or 22nd in the league. It's going to turn into the 31st ranked defense. This team had the lead in the fourth quarter in 7 games. 7 games despite all these injuries. This team was beating the Packers. The Packers did not have the lead either time they played them until they kick a game-winning field goal. Both games. So this team is not as far as you might think, despite their record. Now, I'm not saying their defense is great. Something's going on there because they still could have put up a better performance than being 31st. They still could have been like in the mid-20s or late teens with a guy who really knows his defense. So their problem there is either they're not picking good players, and you would look at their roster aside from linebacker, they've got some pretty good players on defense, but the coach may not be communicating it properly. He may not have the ability to tell the players what he wants. I think, unfortunately, it could be a little more of that. But look, you have to look at what the Lions want to be. Their GM, Bob Quinn, he has a certain prototype. He wants to build them on the line of scrimmage. First-round picks on the offensive and defensive line, Taylor Decker. Big money on the offensive line, Ricky Wagner, who's been a bust. And they want to be a big physical team. Size matters to them. And they want to play 1982 football. They want to run the ball on you. And the formula, I don't know that it can't work in today's NFL, but they have been spotty in player selection. It's been a little bit up and down. I kind of like the formula. It doesn't help when your guys keep getting hurt. Because Kerryon Johnson, he could be a workhorse back. He could be the guy that you could finally give Matt Stafford a running game to. You could feed him the ball, and he can help Stafford, who didn't have a 100-yard rusher for some ridiculous, like 40 straight games or something like that. And he can help you do this. But he had the same issues he has the same issues in the NFL that he had in college. He runs too hard. He's going to run himself out of the league. He got hurt because he runs too hard. Well, if you want to be a power run game, you can't have your running back run too hard and hurt himself. He's got to be durable. He's got to be a workhorse, a Derrick Henry type, an Emmitt Smith type that you can just feed the ball to over and over, and he will not get hurt. So I don't think the scheme or the philosophy is a detriment. They've got to be a little better in selecting their players. But something's wrong with this organization. That's also a question Mason asked about, because you have players who are leaving this organization, not necessarily in their prime, but late enough in their career where they could stay and should stay and still be playing for the team. I'm talking about Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson. They play for different coaches, but they played for the same owner, the same infrastructure, which I don't know what's going on there, but it tells you they think that this team was not committed to winning Super Bowls, that this was not their goal. Because if Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson thought, hey, we're close and the Lions know what they're doing and they're committed to winning a Super Bowl, they probably wouldn't have retired. That makes you think about that. But let's talk about something that's most intriguing. Where are the Lions now? The Lions have the number 3 pick in this draft. And there have been rumors that they're going to trade quarterback Matthew Stafford. Well, now this is when things get interesting. Really interesting. Because let's say this. Let's say that they don't intend to trade Matthew Stafford. Let's say they were just doing this to gin up trade bait. They're in a perfect position to do it. Because if you look at the draft, John's going to put a graphic up here. The Bengals are picking first. There's supposed to be 3 franchise quarterbacks in this draft. The Bengals are going to take one of them. They're going to take Joe Burrow. The Redskins, who presumably don't need a quarterback, are going to pick second, and the Lions pick third. After that is the Giants at 4, and the 2 quarterback-starved teams beside the Bengals are picking 5 and 6, the Dolphins and the Chargers. Well, what does this mean if you're the Dolphins and the Chargers? There's 3 of us who really need quarterbacks. There's 3 quarterbacks in this draft, and the Dolphins and Chargers think that, especially even the Chargers, we're going to at least get one of these guys. One of these guys are going to fall to us. But the Lions have said, no, you know what? We might be taking a quarterback of our own. That's what that tells you when you want to trade Matthew Stafford, who's been there 11 years, that you're looking at one of these quarterbacks yourself. And so this causes a panic. This causes a panic for the Dolphins and Chargers because they're like, we have to trade up with the Lions. Because let me tell you what's not going to happen. Nobody's reported this. Look at the draft. Look at the order. Look who's on the board. The Redskins are picking second. The Giants are picking 4th. The Redskins have to drop behind the Giants to trade with the Dolphins or the Chargers. For them to get ahead of Detroit, the Redskins have to go back that far, and they're not going to do it. Because you cannot let the Giants sit there at 4 and pick Chase Young. You cannot let them have the best player possibly in this draft on a defensive line that's already really good on the interior, and then you have a great player on the outside, and you have a defensive line that can terrorize your quarterback for a decade. They're not going to do it. They are going to stay there. That's almost a certainty, which means you have to trade with Detroit. You have to trade with them now. So Detroit put themselves in a great position. If they were really smart, and I'm not sure they're run this way, what they would have done is they would have gone to Matt Stafford and said, look, we're going to just put this rumor out there. We're going to put this rumor out there because we can drop back 2 or 3 spots and maybe pick up a first-round pick or 2 or 3 second-round picks because the Dolphins and the Chargers are bidding against each other. If Joe Burrow goes 1 and the Lions are sitting there at 3 and people think that they might trade Matt Stafford, you have this bidding war between the Dolphins and the Chargers, and they could, let's say, hey, what can we get the most out of? How can we milk them the most? If the Lions have done this, they put themselves strategically in a very, very smart position. They could sit there at 5, still draft maybe Jeffrey Okudah, the best corner in the draft, maybe the best player in this draft, and still get maybe an extra first-round pick out of it. It'd be the best thing that could happen to this organization. The Lions segment was in response, as I said, to one of our listeners. We've had another one of our listeners, Daniel White. You guys need to do a mock draft, he says. You would do a better job than some of the people I've seen. Thank you, Daniel White. As I've said before, we are responsive. Next week's episode is going to be a complete recap of the Combine. The week after that, fair enough, we're going to do our own mock draft, our first one, a first-round mock draft. We appreciate those guys for being viewers and hopefully subscribers. John is here right now. He's going to do a scouting report on Oregon's quarterback, Justin Herbert.
Hello. Hi, it's John. I'm here to be doing my first solo segment. I might be getting a little series of these leading up to the draft, spotlighting individual players. Different guys that are going to go high, looking at film, and just giving opinions on them. And so today, we're going to be talking about Justin Herbert, quarterback from Oregon. I watched a lot of his games from the 2019-2020 season over the past week, and some games from his 2018-2019 season. It was about 8 hours of film, and I feel like I have a very, very good grasp on him. Now, going into it, I thought he was a second-tier player. I thought he was going to go into the league and be a Phillip Rivers caliber quarterback. Never top 5, but always top 10 in the league. Matt Ryan level. Borderline Hall of Famer. If he ever gets in, he may eke in 15 years after his career's over. He may win a Super Bowl if he's lucky and gets on a good team. A solid franchise second-tier quarterback. Matthew Stafford, Phillip Rivers. Different in style, but in caliber. And I was very pleasantly surprised by what I saw. He's had a great offensive line this year. Really good ground game to go along with that. But he's not had great wide receivers this year. Usually when a quarterback has a great team around him, or any player, you can almost knock him a little bit for it, because you could say he's throwing to guys that are going to be wide open, right? And that's why a lot of the USC quarterbacks busted, is because they're throwing to track stars who are open by 15 yards, right? Any quarterback can hit that. And so he had a great offensive line, but his wide receivers were really bad this year. And I knew they were bad, but I didn't know how bad. It was frustrating to watch, because they would drop everything. 2 or 3 a game, where it was just right in the numbers, touchdowns, big third down plays. And I know he was frustrated, because I was frustrated just looking at it. And so he had a great offensive line, but his wide receiver core was really bad. And he does have a lot of the intangibles you like off the field, especially for a quarterback. You look for great character, a guy who can lead the team. The quarterback's the leader of the team, right? He's the face of the franchise. And so you want a guy who can do good in the locker room, who can motivate your team. You want a good influence, right? The great quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, these are good guys off the field too. And they represent their team well, and he does the same. He's really smart academically. He's really smart football smarts. He's a really great influence on the team, and he might be quiet, but a lot of the guys look up to him. It's pretty clear to see. A lot of the guys think of him as, the leader of the team, and he is. He also has some more of the intangibles that you like on the field, right? The ability to sense the rush is really big as a quarterback, and it's very hard to teach. It's just kind of a thing where you can develop it, but you either have it or you don't, and he definitely has it. Check out this play against Wisconsin. So this is their bowl game in the Rose Bowl. Wisconsin is a very, very good rush team. They get after the quarterback. So this defensive tackle here is going to do a stunt around the edge. Right? He's going to loop around. And this right tackle is going to mess up, and he's going to come too far in. Now, the tackle is going to slip. He has a wide open lane. He's going to miss it. But watch Herbert in this pocket. Look at him. He doesn't look, but he still moves away from it. And while he misses the throw, this play still impressed me. Right? This play still impressed me because he's the ability to sense the rush and hit it when the pocket is collapsing around him. And that he did that consistently all year. He took hits in the pocket. He can run really, really well. Same game against Wisconsin. This is a read option type play where he just goes for 30 yards, touchdown, outruns the whole Wisconsin team. He's got more mobility than people give him credit for. He might have like Trevor Lawrence, almost Josh Allen level with the ball in his hands in terms of running. He's very, very mobile. He can slip out of tackle. He's very big. He's got the frame that you want for a quarterback. He's like 6'6", 240, but he's got the main things you look for. The accuracy, and he's for certainly got the arm. He's for sure got the arm. Downfield, the game that really, really proved to me that he can develop and become a top-tier NFL quarterback is the 2018 game against Stanford. He played out of his mind. He threw like 3 incompletions in all of regulation. They lost the game, by the way. They got into overtime and they lost. But he played so good in this game. Look at this play right here. It's 3rd and 14. They need big plays. Now, this slot corner down here is going to come in with the blitz. And the wide receiver he's guarding is going to hit a post. All right? This linebacker is going to drop back, and he's going to be taking away all the ins and the short routes. And then you got a cover 2 with this safety that you may or may not be able to see on screen, taking away the deep and the out routes, right? And this post is going to temporarily be able to split those 2 players. But you got to drill this ball in there. You got to wing it in there. And so, look at him. He identifies the blitz, knows what's coming, and look how the ball speed. Look at the ball speed. Whips it in, perfect pass, hits him in stride, and they convert on 3rd and 14. Another great, great play is at the goal line here. They're not quite far hash, but they're almost far hash. And he's going to be throwing an out route to this slot wide receiver. It's kind of a pick play. But throwing the out route from the far hash is a very, very difficult throw. The angle of it means that if you don't drill this ball as hard as you can, the corner is going to make a play on it. The corner is going to be able to undercut it and pick you off. You have to drill this ball. There are NFL quarterbacks that won't even attempt to make this throw because you do get picked off on it. And look at the ball speed on this throw. That's impressive. You could barely see the ball. He drilled that ball in there. Here's another one. This is just an extra one where he's drilling the ball. Fits it into a tight window. The only place where his wide receiver could have caught it. Look at that. The corner's right there. It's throws like these that make me believe he's an NFL quarterback. Not just an NFL quarterback. A top-tier, elite NFL quarterback. And that he deserves to go top 5 in this draft. He does have some negatives. He had a little slip in progression from 2018-2019. He did. And it's weird because this season, he will miss passes. And it's oftentimes not the deep ones either. He misses flat passes. Just low zone, low ball zone. I don't know what it is. It might be because he felt like he had to be Superman. He had to make a play every play. He didn't have a lot of help around him. Despite the fact that his offensive line was like the best in the nation, his wide receiver core was shot. By the end of the season, he was just throwing to one guy in that Arizona State game. He had one guy, and he was just throwing to him, just feeding him the ball. And that could have been a part of it. I don't know what it was. I also think Oregon underutilized him. They use him to throw a lot of bubble screen to wide receivers. He does a lot of RPO, things like that. Just little dinky passes, and it's like using a howitzer to shoot a magic 8-ball. Like, it's just not. I don't know. I feel like if you get him into a big boy offense or the big boys play, and you get him to show off that arm a little bit more, get him to push the ball downfield with a coach that can allow him to develop, I think he can do really, really well in this league, and I like Herbert a lot more than I thought I would.
Thank you, John, for that. On behalf of me and him, we want to thank you guys for joining us again this week. We're going to have all our media info in the comments section, right above it, I should say. How to contact us on Facebook, how to get a hold of us on email, how to join us on Twitter. If you guys have any comments or questions, we're user-friendly. We'd love to talk about your team. Thanks for watching Our Sport, and we'll see you guys again next week.